Hello, and welcome to our webinar today, Digitally Transform Your HR and Payroll Technology. This presentation created specifically for tribal governments. Today, our presentation will be given by experts in technology with hands-on experience in these fields, Matt Borkowski from Arctic IT and Sheri Hashimoto from Sparkrock. Before we begin, we'd like to remind you that there are two handouts available for you to download. The first is an ebook that highlights the functionality of Sparkrock's solution for the public sector, and the other is a capabilities statement of Arctic IT, which highlights our depth of knowledge of implementing ERP solutions. As always, if you have a question, please feel free to submit it via the chat so we can address them at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Matt Borkowski.
All right, thank you, Joanne. And on behalf of myself and Sheri Hashimoto, Sparkrock, very pleased to be with you today to talk about just some of the latest and greatest in HR and payroll technology and how that really weaves and works together with your finance and accounting solutions to give you just the best of modern technology to help you run your tribal organization. Today, we will be starting with an introduction of Arctic IT, who we are, and our partner Sparkrock, and how we're helping folks move from a legacy application to new cloud modern solutions for HR, payroll, and finance to really help people just make the best of what's available for technology to move their businesses forward in this ever-changing environment in which we're doing business and interacting with our members. And that is on that Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform. So we'll get a little solution overview as to what that platform is and how Sparkrock 365 really fits into that to provide the best capabilities out there for our tribal governments. And then Sheri is going to give us a real sneak peek to see the software in action, see how it can really help move your organizations forward, and leave a little bit of time for Q&A at the end today. So with that, let's dive in. But before we really talk about the technology itself, which is the key of our presentation today, it's important to remember that beyond the technology that you pick, or regardless of the technology that you choose to implement for your tribe, what's just as important, if not more important, is to make sure that you've got the right partner to help you make the best use of that technology. And we're confident that Arctic IT is that best partner. We've talked with folks a number of times that are moving off of solutions, not necessarily because the functionality isn't there, but because it wasn't implemented correctly. They weren't trained properly in how to do it. The organizations that they were working with didn't understand the nuances of working with tribal organizations. And that's where Arctic IT is a completely different story. We've got more than 15 years of community engagement in Indian country to help our customers make the best use of their technology. We've worked with 72 tribal entities across the United States, and we specialize in technology for tribal governments and casinos. And part of that is because we are also proud of our native roots being 100% owned by the Doyon Alaska Native Corporation. And we are also proud to be a Microsoft partner as a native corporation to be able to help our fellow tribal organizations make the best use of the Microsoft software and solutions out there. So we really are those industry experts. Where we have on staff Microsoft Dynamics MVPs, there's only a handful of those in the world, which means that we are enabled to be hired by Microsoft to train Microsoft's own employees on the solutions as we have more expertise built in that than a lot of folks at Microsoft themselves do. And we started off truly as an ERP only focused company more than 15, almost 20 years ago now. And so as we've built that extensive ERP experience, focused really on the tribal government market, we've really built up that industry expertise on the Microsoft stack. And again, we are proud of our Alaska Native heritage being a federally certified ANC 8A corporation. And all of that we build our expertise into and utilizing the Microsoft stack of technology. Because you really need to have that solid foundation of really the largest software company in the world, Microsoft, being able to give you that solid foundation with the versatility though needed today because business needs change. Who would have thought that the drastic amounts of change that we've had to use with technology over the last year, who would have thought about that 2 years ago? And those that were on older platforms without that versatility just were not able to make those changes and adaptability that they needed, reducing productivity, reducing dependency, dependability. All of that is enabled with that Microsoft Solid platform, being able to integrate the usability of it throughout your entire workday. Uh, and taking that a step further to build on top of that solid platform that Microsoft provides to give very specific software functionality needed for needed for the public sector, nonprofit organizations, just like tribal governments and tribal entities that are providing those services with fund-based, accounting and granting functionality needed to support their organizations. And Sparkrock has that. They've been focused on these markets for over a decade. Combined with the Microsoft platform and Arctic IT's industry expertise, we are confident that we are the best team out there at helping tribal organizations make the best use of new technology. But taking a step back a little bit into why the need to move, it's really good to have a broader picture of just modernization in general of the technology landscape right now. Why are more and more organizations needing to move forward with a modern platform? And a lot of that starts, especially for tribal organizations, with siloed teams. Because of grant funding that you've been utilizing for years, and in casino and gaming revenue streams that are coming in, other sorts of businesses that all have aspects of your business that have to be managed separately with different funding streams and all this. This has really siloed so many of our organizations into separate teams, where each team has their own unique needs for data and for the services that they're providing for the members. But there's also a shared need for that data. For people to be able to understand holistically, what are we doing? What sorts of services are we providing to this family or to this household for these members? And more times, those questions are being asked by tribal leaders, by tribal council. What are the services overall that we are providing for this family? And very rarely are organizations able to provide that information back or to track that in an efficient way, because teams have been siloed on their separate systems, their separate needs, their separate databases. Um, but because some of that data, like an address is a great example, is needed in each, for each program or for each grant funded program, there's duplicate data everywhere. That same tribal member's information might be in 12 different places or more across the organization, which means it gets out of date. Or trying to sync that up properly revolves so many manual processes, or running paper back and forth, and you're trying to find the right filing cabinet with those forms in it that you need. All uh, all feeds into insufficient tracking. Maybe shared spreadsheets or things like that end up becoming a little bit of ways of trying to bridge that gap. But that just leads to more security issues. Where is that data? Who has access to see the data? What if we need to access that when we can't come into the office? How do we do that securely? Uh, all of this coming together to realize that our technology, your legacy software, is really holding organizations back from being able to efficiently meet the needs of their tribal members, to be able to efficiently deliver the services, and track those outcomes that grants are requiring in a more stringent basis each and every year. So it really moves us to needing to look at a modern platform. And so many of those modern platforms really are cloud-based systems. The cloud is something that sometimes is a little bit uh, of a hard concept to grasp, or can sound kind of scary, but just overall, typically an older legacy system is on premises, which means that it is installed on a server somewhere in your building that you could run over in tribal administration and put your hand on top of it and say, this is where my data is, this is where our programs are. But the problem is that that leaves you very vulnerable to site related issues. We've helped a number of tribal governments sadly have to try to recover from major cyber security attacks, where all data that was stored on premise had been encrypted by ransomware. So they were completely shut down. Anything that they had on premise, was made unavailable. And then you have your natural disasters, power outages, all that stuff that can lead to just those vulnerability to site related issues. And if you do have on offsite backups, oftentimes they're a week or more old, which is better than nothing, but oftentimes aren't even recoverable, depending upon how modern and up to date and stringent your backup policies and procedures are. And So having that redundancy built in to protect you from that is possible with on-premise solutions, but it is very difficult and costly. You're typically then trying to design your own little on-premise or separate data centers that are connected in between, and there's just more and more capital funding being put towards these 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 large implementations of on-premise infrastructure, which is getting more and more difficult for tribes to be able to afford to invest in that sort of infrastructure. Um, we talked a little bit about the complicated recovery processes, but then when you need to be able to enable a remote workforce where folks have to be able to connect in remotely from home to continue to meet those needs to do their jobs, then they're having to use older technologies of remote access, probably a VPN, which are less secure, more cumbersome, and now you're transmitting a lot of data that is needed on a client workstation, stored on a server, and things just slow down versus a completely modernized system. And support is just costly, and data security risks go up. Or when you're dealing with a modern solution, a cloud-based solution, that means your systems, your data, what you are accessing is in a large public data center or collection of data centers like in Microsoft Azure that have all of those redundancies, all of the backups, all of the what we call geo-redundant systems to protect against those site-related issues, are to protect you from those local issues or even multi-center by using these multi-site data centers, and the level of security that they can afford. Microsoft has one of the biggest cyber crimes units in the world, constantly evolving their techniques and how they protect, so that your Azure resources or your systems in the cloud are not becoming accessed by these bad actors, and are protected from any on-premise ransomware or things that may come into your organization. What you've got in the Microsoft cloud in this case is protected and secured and separate from that. Uh, and then you are truly able to securely empower a remote workforce, giving your employees the ability to work from home, work on the road. um, this idea of the pandemic being unprecedented is true, but the next time it happens, it will be precedented. We've had this, we've seen this now. We've had to adapt in a way, and so being able to now, there's an expectation that we will be, as organizational leaders, we will be able to weather that storm the next time it happens, and continue to weather the storm that we're still currently in for much of the country. And in the past, there was difficulties with some of these cloud systems for a lot of tribal organizations if they didn't have efficient internet connectivity. Just like we've dealt with that with a lot of our customers in Alaska as an Alaska Native corporation over the years. But more and more, those barriers are being reduced as infrastructure is becoming so key. Internet connectivity is really becoming a necessary utility for most of our organizations and our tribal communities, and as that is becoming just much more available across our tribal communities, that is less of a barrier than it's ever been, allowing you to enable a remote workforce and better protect your systems in the cloud. So our solution for that, when we talk about what is the best cloud platform to move to, that's where Microsoft Dynamics 365 comes in. Dynamics 365 is the product name for Microsoft for their cloud-based business applications. A lot of us have maybe heard of Microsoft 365 or Office 365 for our business productivity suites, Outlook, Excel, Word, all that stuff. The Dynamics 365 are, in a similar fashion, are those cloud-based but business applications. Things like finance and HR and payroll, sales, marketing, customer service, our tribal platform solution, enterprise retail and e-commerce. And they help break down these data silos using the Dynamics 365 platform because of the common data model, which allows a secured and shared information of records that aren't confidential or that might be confidential but for allowed users in these different applications. Great example is a tribal member record, allowing a shared tribal member master record profile of who they are, who their family members are, where their address is, and those things, but maybe protecting some of the other confidential information that only needs to be viewable by enrollment, or other things only for family and social services. Being able to share securely and effectively what needs to be to enable better service, but being able to secure and not share those things, behind some program specific security roles to ensure that you can only see what you're authorized to, and all built on top of that best-in-class cloud security provided by Microsoft. But going beyond that, going beyond a specific application, choosing a platform that allows you to adapt your solution as businesses change, as your requirements change. The ability to maybe submit certain types of requests through the application with different workflows, that sort of thing. Run new different types of dashboards and reports that have never been asked for in the past. That Microsoft platform enables all of those things through their Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI, allow you to create very, very beautiful looking in-depth dashboards and reports in Power BI, being able to connect applications both inside of and outside of Microsoft to create workflows across the organization to just digitize those manual processes and really speed up the response times that you have to your members for these requests as they come up. And then being able to build unique applications without writing any code to extend the functionality of Dynamics 365, maybe to enable certain types of requests for employees or members or that sort of thing that might come in, like a service request from a tribal member that creates an application process and workflow inside of your family services solution. Things like that the Dynamics 365 solution with Microsoft Power Platform enable you to make those changes without having to implement a new system or having to write all kinds of custom code. It's just all part of that connected platform in Dynamics 365. And again, built on top of Microsoft Azure. So that security first cloud platform that's always on the latest and greatest technology, where as your needs grow with the amount of storage and things that you need, you can do that. You're not having to go out and buy all kinds of new servers and infrastructure from a capital expense perspective. It's just a little bit more operating expense from a monthly subscription basis when you need to use more of those applications and more of that computing power. But the beauty is you only pay for what you need. When you are investing in large on-premise servers and infrastructure like that, most of the time, a lot of that isn't usable, or a lot of that isn't needed, I should say. And so you have a lot of expenditure for computing resources and storage resources that are sitting there unused because you might need them in the future. And then maybe you will grow to be able to need them, but then it's out of date by the time you get there typically, and you're having to refresh that. Where with the Azure platform, you're only paying for what you need. As needs grow or shrink, you can shrink that spend accordingly, and you never have to worry about unused and wasted capital expenditures in that regard. And then that integration platform, again, the ability to connect to the other applications on Dynamics 365, but having very modern feature-rich tools to connect to external applications, to be able to to be able to bring in needed data and compute and run reports off needed data that is maybe generated elsewhere, or be able to send your information to external resources where that's available and appropriate, all built on that integration platform supplied by Dynamics 365. And then fully integrated with the Microsoft applications to be able to have collaboration on those documents that you're working on in real time, so that I can be updating a spreadsheet and then Joanne can see my updates, we can work together, and all that can be integrated with Dynamics 365. Maybe shared calendars within Office and being able to get an email from a vendor, for instance, or an employee, and be able to see information about that employee because I'm authorized to do so right inside of Outlook without having to switch and bring up that system and look that employee up or that vendor record up, that sort of thing. And being able to connect with your team anywhere, on any time, on any device, like with Microsoft Teams or other sorts of collaboration tools that are all part of that Microsoft platform. That really allow your accounting and HR system to be much more than that, to be really connected with the entire organization. But we're talking today about some specific functionality for the rest of this time. While we now have a good understanding of the cloud, your modern platforms in general, and then specifically the features enabled with the Microsoft Cloud with Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, and Office 365, we now need to focus our attention back onto the ERP, HR, and payroll solution. And at the core of that, with Microsoft Dynamics 365, they have created the Business Central Financial ERP application, which it's based on some more legacy-based Dynamics functionality that they have taken the best of, completely recreated and modernized for the cloud, and brought on lots of new features and functions needed in a modern system that's completely optimized to help your business run at its best. But with Business Central, it's not all inclusive. It doesn't include all the functionality that a tribal government's going to need. And that's where a partner like Sparkrock 365 is able to take that platform that's there, that Microsoft gives us, and enables us to create very specific functionality needed for a tribal government organization. So that includes creating some very robust human capital management and workforce management, payroll, scheduling, timekeeping, fund accounting and procurement functionality in specific and unique ways that public sector and tribal organizations and grant-funded organizations need. So purpose-built for tribal government organizations, utilizing the power of the platform, as we've been talking about for a while, on top of that Business Central solution is the Sparkrock 365 embedded functionality in Business Central. And so Arctic IT, we've been working with and known about Sparkrock and been impressed by what they've been doing for years. And with the release of all this great functionality in Sparkrock 365, we're very happy to now be a Sparkrock 365 partner. We've got multiple implementations ongoing, some implementations that are done, and our customers are singing its praises, and we're very excited to have that be part of Arctic IT's portfolio of bringing the best technology available to our tribal government organizations. So with that, again, I'm very pleased to be joined by Sheri Hashimoto, from Sparkrock, who's going to take us through just some of the great details and give us a sneak peek as to what makes Sparkrock 365 such a great fit for tribal governments. So with that, Sheri, welcome again. Glad to have you joining us. I'm going to make you the presenter.
Great, thank you. All right. Again, I'm Sheri, and I'm hailing from the greater Seattle area, and I'll be taking you on this introductory tour of our human capital management product. And I just wanted to start off by letting you know that I really only have 3 slides before we jump into the product. So previously, if you were in that meeting, James, our CTO, did a webinar with a focus on financials. And what I wanted to emphasize, the advantages of having both areas offered to you on a single platform, and they're fully integrated. So most of our customers were using multiple systems and spreadsheets and other things to help their business along, and we were able to replace them as those systems didn't communicate with one another very well anyway. So we got rid of a lot of those inherent redundancies like dual entry, sometimes triple entry. And when you're doing things like that, those systems can get disconnected and they're out of sync, right? So you're not sure which one to look at. So here's some examples from an HR perspective that we can eliminate that. So when an employee is hired, they would be able to submit any expense claims to the appropriate fund or program. Or from payroll, the employee garnishments or tax levies, whatever you have, we can create a workflow to accounts payable, right? And that ensures that the appropriate parties or vendors are being paid. And again, knowing where those dollars are going is what's key here. Or using time entry right here, an employee's time can be allocated to the appropriate fund, project, or grant. And this ensures that you have an up-to-date view when you're doing your budget monitoring, right? So you always know that it's latest and greatest. And then from a financials perspective, being able to drill all the way down to even the employee level detail when you're doing your reconciling or researching. And what that ends up being is a huge time saver for both departments. So Sparkrock is what I refer to as being device agnostic, meaning it can run on any device at any time. And as you can see on the mobile example here, it's optimized for easier navigation. And this remote capability is how many of us are working anyway. But looking ahead, being able to respond while you're on the go, whether you're at another location, whether you're commuting, or gosh, even while you're waiting at the doctor's office, it's really just a must-have nowadays. And so we want to provide a full platform that you can grow into as well as with And these are just 3 of some of the goals that we want for our customers, right? And the following items are some of the main product areas where our customers have benefited and they've been able to realize them, starting with this position management and workflow. So Sparkrock is a position-based product, and what that means is it allows you to set up a variety of rules and defaults that are associated with a job, like location, department, FTE budgeted, who your report to manager is, what step and grade you might want to assign to that position, what work schedule is normally associated with that position or job, and then even determining benefits eligibility. And then when you combine that with workflows, you can automatically trigger a lot of those to-do things that are associated when you hire somebody into a position, like notifying IT that system access needs to be set up, or notifying the office manager that an access card is needed, or even letting that new employee know that they now need to sign up for some mandatory training, along with providing them an embedded link in that notification that will take them right there so that they can register for that class. Next thing is HR requests. So how many of you have heard of or maybe even used something called a personnel action form? I may be dating myself. But what this is just basically an employee change, right? Now, it might still be on paper, or you may have moved it online to something like Word, but I'm pretty sure that they're still well used in a lot of organizations, right? And then once it's done, where does this employee information go? In a filing cabinet in someone's office, or is it in an online file somewhere? And then how do you ensure security for things like disciplinary actions or medical information? I don't know if you're subject to HIPAA or not, but basically that is still information that needs to be, private and secure. And then again, being able to automatically trigger workflows with those HR actions and employee changes for such things as approvals, notifications, if they were on a schedule, that might change, and even eligibility, right? So we continue that automation and streamlining of your process, again, coming back to increasing and improving your efficiency. And then to further that transformation journey, we have employee and manager self-service. So, things like this are really just expected nowadays because your users are a lot more comfortable and savvy with technology because of our mobile phones, right? They've gotten us there. So self-service, what it does is it reduces all those calls, emails, even sticky notes that are sent to managers and HR asking things like, what was my pay last month? Or what's my vacation balance? Can I have the day after Thanksgiving off? When am I working next week? So we'll take a quick look at providing your employees with the tools that will enable them to help themselves. And that reduces a lot of the admin time spent by your managers and HR. And then last but not least, before we hop into the product demo, is reporting. And while we offer the standard statutory reports, we recognize that those aren't really applicable for tribal governments. But from an HR perspective, what is key is being able to track not only your employees' time and where it gets charged, but also anything that impacts productive time, but still incurs an expense, like any absences. And so things like turnover and for unexpected events like our current pandemic, that'll help you know where you stand in your business. All right, so this is a lot, I know, but this dashboard is an example of what would be used by someone like your HR manager. In other words, someone with full access. And right off the bat, most folks' eyes are drawn to the graphics and the tiles, especially the red alert ones, right? Well, this is on purpose, and what this is telling you is giving you the ability to see the health of your business at a glance. Okay. And we want to provide you with an interactive view that contains what's important to you when you're working. And each user is able to personalize their own dashboard view without impacting anyone else. So for example, if this HR manager didn't want to see anything regarding payroll, they could easily come in here and get rid of it so that it no longer appears. And then remember when I said it was optimized for mobile? So as you make those changes, you can immediately see how it would appear on a tablet, and this is interactive as well, or even your mobile device. Now, if you look, let's stop designing here. If you look across the top of the dashboard, you can see all the various areas that the HR administrator would have access to. And if you look at this aqua bar down below, this is like a favorites bar. You can see that these are quick links that have been bookmarked into this favorite bar. And if you recognize some of those terms, it's because this has been designed to have a Microsoft-like look and feel with seamless integration to that Microsoft functionality built right in. And it's this similarity that really promotes quicker user adoption, and it decreases the time and effort to ramp up, which has provided some of our customers with an almost immediate ROI right out of the starting gate. And what I mean by integration with Microsoft out of the box, here's a couple more examples. In the upper left-hand corner is what they call the Microsoft Waffle. And this gives you direct access to all your Office 365 applications right here in our product, right? So now this is an example of Outlook, but it can be any MAPI compliant email. So here are different examples of email notifications that can be received from or generated from the system. And in this case, sometimes it contains a link if you have to have an action to do, but you can go ahead and it'll take you right into the product for that link. So this makes it really convenient and efficient. So you can come out here, do what you need to do. If it needs to be approved, you can go ahead and do that, and boom, okay, you're on your way, over, done, quick and efficient. Now, in that same vein, back into the HR manager, you'll see that Office 365 functionality throughout this application. So the next example is here. This tile shows how many active FTEs you have in your organization. And if I just click on it, you can see all the supporting information that is associated with it. But with keeping in that Microsoft vein, you can come out here and export it to Excel. Now the key here is that I didn't have to, load anything separate. It's just part of and built in the Sparkrock application. All right. And so what it is you're able to use tools if you're using Office 365 with which you're already familiar, right? And again, just keeping it a lot more efficient. Then on the left-hand side here, let me just scooch this down just a bit. On the left-hand side here, this is an interactive graphic representation of your FTEs by department. Here you saw the active FTEs, but here you can see your FTEs by department. And again, if you click on it, since it's interactive, you can see who is in that department. But you can also select, a variety of different HR related views of the chart. So in this case, maybe I want to keep an eye on turnover. So here I have a real-time view of, okay, how many hires I had, when they were hired, if I had any terminations just by hovering over them. And if I click on it, I can see actually who was hired. And if I click on the actual new hires, it will take me directly into the employee master, which is a great segue into taking a look at the employee master, because if you're like me, I spent a lot of time in the employee master when I was in HR. So here is a sample view of, if you have pictures, you can see your employees this way, or if you prefer, you can just have them simply listed out. Either way, let's take a look at the information that you can see, and hopefully you can read this. Go ahead and enlarge it a little bit. But see, here's some general information on Sean here. You can see his name. He prefers to be called Mac, what his job is, who his boss is, his email, birth date, contact information, and you'll notice here you can even incorporate, there's even the ability to show on a map where he might live if HR needs to see that. But administrative dates, lots and lots of dates that you can use. And again, remember, if you're not using some of these, you can personalize this so that some of these date fields don't even appear. But I like a lot of dates because it gives you the ability to, if you hire them, rehire them, what are you going to base their vacation, if you have vacation entitlements, what are you going to base that off of? Or even seniority dates. So if they change to a different position or a different location, maybe their seniority has to start all over again. Okay, but you get the idea. And over to the right-hand side, again, you can incorporate a picture. You can attach, there are attachments you can incorporate. It tells you whether or not he's a full FTE or partial, if there are any tasks. And we also have a full audit trail. So audit, you determine what you want to track. You know, in this case, the old value, the new value, who did it, what time and date that change was done, and item attributes. So with all the fields of information that we provide in this product, there's always going to be, you know, something that you want to track that we don't have a field for. So these item attributes is another name for a user-defined field. Whether it is a drop-down where you can select what it is, whether it's free-form text, whether it's numbers, you can collect that information on the employee as well. And if I go across here, these are all the additional places, whether the assignments are the different positions that they're assigned if they work more than one position. Again, we already went through the attributes, but everything that is associated, if they have an alternate address, maybe they want their mailing somewhere else, any additional contact information. And from a human resources perspective, the appraisals that you might do, any professional associations that they might belong to that you want to keep track of, their attendance plan. And I remember I mentioned confidential information that you can secure, that who has access to an employee's confidential information, their benefits, if they have any previous experience that you want to keep track of, everything and anything. And basically what this is keeping all that employee information in one repository, right? So you're not running around searching all over for it like I had to do when where I was working was audited, and it ended up being down in a basement, so that was great. But moving on. Okay, remember how I mentioned the personnel action form? Well, the term here again is HR requests. And this is really a prime example of how we can help you digitally transform and automate that entire process. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and look at the reason codes. There are a variety of reason codes, and you'll understand what I mean when I show you this list. Any kind of employee changes, whether they're a new hire, whether you're rehiring them, whether they're going to be working more than one position, whether they're transferring from one position to another, any kind of details change on their employee master, whether they're going on leave, and whether they're returning full-time or just gradually returning. I don't know if you have COLA increases, but you can do one-time pays. It covers a whole plethora, in addition to being able to create, you know, your own changes that you might have in your organization. But let's take a look at one. Let's take a look at new hire. Okay, so after you add all the details for the new hire, what I want to call your attention to is over here on the right, these unprocessed steps. Remember I said that being able to automate all the associated tasks whenever you have a new hire or whether you have any kind of employee change, this is what we provide, is when this is processed, it will go out, the system will create a new employee, it'll create a new company email address based on the format you've specified. It will also, if you use schedules, it'll assign them the schedule that's associated with that position. It'll go in and insert them into a union if it's associated with that position. But basically, the key here is automating. All these things that usually there's a list. Okay, if I do a new hire, then I've got to do this, this, this. I need to communicate with this person, and I need to remember to do this, this, and that. So this takes care of it and puts it in an automated format. And just real quickly here from new hire, because this was a bane of my existence, was are transfers, because transfers, if they're going from one position to another, then somebody has to remember to remove them from a schedule if you use them or insert them in the new schedule. And then, what about training and qualifications? What if they don't have what if they need additional training for this new position that they're incorporated into or they've transferred into? So you have to remember to do that. But here it can be done automatically. And by the way, what about their seniority? Is that going to carry over or are they starting new? Again, being able to streamline and automate all these processes is huge for HR. Okay. And again, once you do all those changes, it's all in one place, right? So speaking of qualifications, I made this larger. Okay, so I have to scroll down here. Here's just, again, those red tiles that call your attention to what needs to be done. And I can see who has some expiring qualifications, because the last thing you want to do is, what if that snowplow driver, their license is expiring? You don't want him or her to jump into that huge piece of machinery with an expired license. So this is going to help proactively minimize any liability and compliance as well. But what about the actual employee whose qualifications are expiring? What can they see and how could they resolve it themselves? So let's take a look at self-service. So you'll notice right off the bat, it's a much more simplified look and feel for your regular employees, right? Unlike the HR manager control center dashboard that we just were in, who, HR manager wants access to everything, managing, reporting, setups, and more. Your employees, like anyone else, they really just want to see what's important to them, right? And you can probably guess, but the number one thing all employees always want to see is their pay. No exceptions, always. Once you give this to them, is show me the money, basically. Okay. And so they can come out here and easily take a look and view their own paychecks and all the information by themselves. So that takes care of that pretty easily. And then what's next on the list? What else do they want to do? Well, second in popularity is, how much time off do I have? And that question usually pops up. And if you're providing it on a pay stub, they usually don't have it with them when they want to ask for that time off. But here they can come and see, I can see I have 70 hours, and look, nicely converts to I have a little over nine days. And if I want to look at the additional detail, I can do that as well. But if you look over here on the upper right, I can submit a time off request here. Okay, so pretty easy. It really, again, cuts down on all those questions and admin things that your managers in HR usually have to take time out of their day and attend to. Okay, now in addition to that, what else? Okay, they can do they can do the expense claims. So there's, again, that tie into finance, any tasks that you might assign them. So one of the questions is, if you have definite things that have to be filled out, or you want them to review and read, you can create tasks and assign them to the employees, and then include the attachments too. Any qualifications, oh, that's right, for those transfers. So as an employee, I can see I have 5 qualifications. I have 1 expiring and 1 expired. Okay, my CPR qualification expired a month ago, but I can also see that there's a training coming up. There's a couple sessions. So if I click on that, I can go ahead and see the CPR training. I can see the date. I can see that there are other resident or other registrants, and where it's located if you want to attach more information for that class. And then once I complete it, I will get my CPR certification back. But I also note that, oh, look, under my training, I've already signed up for one, but it's probably sitting in my manager's inbox waiting to get approved somewhere. And again, all the information associated with that training you can do right here. And like I said, when you get that certification and the employee receives a passing grade, their qualifications will automatically get updated. And that's huge if you're using scheduling and you need to staff. So being able to staff and fill an open shift, because it might require some of those specific qualifications that you need when you're staffing. All right. So the next thing is, here's a simple time card. It's pretty straightforward, but what I want to call your attention to is here on the left-hand side, you can have it default to regular hours, but if you have employees that need to put their time against a grant or a special program or project, they can do that as well. Again, it's tying back into being able to accurately track all your costs. Now, going hand in hand with timesheets, and you don't have to use it, are schedules. But if you have anything like a community rec center with a pool and you have to staff it with certified lifeguards, then we have you covered, right? And I can come out here and look to see what my schedule is. Maybe in a couple weeks, I can see what days I'm working, the time frame, and where I'm working. Now, from a manager's view, and I don't know if you have this or not, but if you allow your employees to say, if I can't work a Wednesday, you can also do shift swapping, but of course that's with approval process. Now, switching over to a manager's point of view, a manager can see who reports to them. Right, and I'll pick on Sean again here, or Mac, as he likes to be called. And I can see, as a manager, you'll be able to see some basic information about the employee. You notice it's grayed out, so you can't really change it here unless you submit an HR request, and emergency contact information as well. In addition to that, if you do appraisals, you have the ability to also conduct employee appraisals, and what the score is. You can attach the performance, fill out the performance evaluation, and then submit that. What else can a manager do? Approve attendance. They have tasks. They can approve timesheets. But let's go into scheduling. Now, if you're the one that's managing an employee's schedule, here you can see who's scheduled for what day. But again, you notice that there are, at a glance, colorful warnings. And if I scroll down here, I can also see I have a vacancy. It also tells me up here that I have 2 vacancies for this particular time frame. I can easily go in and it tells me in plain English what the problem is. So I can say, oh, look, it exceeds Sean's maximum daily hours. And if I look down here, oh, he's scheduled from 9 to 7 for 10 hours. Well, that's way too long. He usually just gets off at 5. So we'll go ahead and easily correct that, and boom. Okay. It's just that easy to correct and be on your way. Now, as for the shift vacancy, let's take a look at that. If you're a new manager, or perhaps you have a lot of employees in your department and it's just really difficult to remember who can do what, right? Again, letting the system show your managers who's qualified to fill that vacancy. And then it ensures that you're correctly staffed and compliant. So in this case, it gives you a little information. You'll see it's for an 8-hour day. It'll give Pedro and Maria 16 hours for their week. It'll give Ramon the 8 hours period. And if you expand any of these, you can see additional information on their schedule, on their seniority, their work history, and even their qualifications. So if you just want to, you can either assign it, or if you want to put it out for bid, you can send it out there and it'll contact those employees. And it's up to you how you want to handle that, whether it's first come, first serve, or whether you're going to base it on seniority. Again, being able to quickly and easily fill those vacancies. Okay, and again, there's that tie into qualifications that I mentioned before. So it only brought up people initially who are qualified to work that vacancy. You can look at others, but that is the first priority that it will show your managers who are attending the schedules. Okay, so let me quickly go back to the HR manager view. Earlier, this is the reporting portion. Earlier, you saw that there are some interactive views. This is report inbox. You can schedule reports to run, and they'll show up here. So if you wanted to see a birthday report at the end of each month for next month, you can. But the real key here is, and I'll expand this because it's very tiny, is additional business intelligence reports that you can have. And this is an example for HR, but this is telling me with just one click how many employees I have in this particular job. There's a list of all my employees to the left, but it's telling me I have 2 teachers and a total of 1.8 FTE, which used to take me a lot longer to figure out because I'd have to download it and then sort it out. Here's one for employee absences. Again, you can see who the employees are, but this is going to give you a view of who has, what absences. You can click on it. You can see the darker ones show more employee absences. But if you ever suspected that maybe you had more absences, like on a Monday or a Friday, you can do that here as well, and it will show you the corresponding employees. And you can even zoom in on one specific employee, and it'll give you the details here of what those absences entailed. Okay. If you take it a step further and you're using things like scheduling, this will give you additional information as to maybe even specific locations, but even the impact of what we're going through now, and that's the COVID pandemic. So you can key in on that, and then all that leads to is trending information too. So, maybe different areas, different locations have different trends that you can look at visually. So when it comes to making decisions based on your most current situation, this is where this business intelligence reporting, or BI reporting, having access to this kind of organizational insight can really help you become proactive when you're making those workforce decisions. And it's being able to back up those feelings or suspicions with actual data, and that can now support your case if needed. Okay, so that was a really high level, but before I conclude, I did mention the drill down from finance all the way back into your employee information. So if I go into the chart of accounts right here and do a search on salaries, let's use that one, I can see all the finance related information, but really what I'm concerned about is what's been charged to it. So I can pick a line here. Remember, I'm the finance person. I can look to see all the detail And if you give that finance person the appropriate security, they can actually drill down into the employee and see the detail of what is associated with that. You'll notice this is all grayed out, so they can't change the information, which they're not usually interested in anyway, but they can click here and see the detail, supporting detail of, say, like the paychecks, and being able to see all of that right from their chart of accounts without having to call you and say, hey, can you give me that information? Okay. So just to recap of some of the key points, a lot of other solutions, they're focused on other things like widgets and buying and selling and packaging and shipping them. And don't get me wrong, we can accommodate the purchase and selling of items as well. But the difference that Sparkrock offers is, where does that money go afterwards, right? Like, does it go to fund a program or support a social project? So with that in mind, our customers were looking for a more comprehensive product to help them manage the cost side of things. And a big part of that cost is the people side. So being able to manage your time allocations and then having that integrated with finance is of tremendous value. And it gives them insight to the true cost of their programs and services that they're offering. And the key really is being able to report back to their funders in a more accurate and timely fashion. And if tribal governments are similar to some of our local governments and nonprofit organizations, you really rarely get the opportunity to fund and upgrade your systems, right? Which is why our product gives you that long-term leg up, so to speak, with the advantages of the Microsoft's technology and platform. So they upgrade, we upgrade, and so you're kept much more up to date and relevant than ever before. So I hope in this brief time I've been able to show some clear advantages of Sparkrock's product for tribal governments, and equally important is that with Arctic IT's professional expertise and assistance and experience, they'll help guide you on this journey to ensure your success. And with that, I'm right on time. Sorry, Matt. I'll hand it back over to Matt. Matt?
Yes, thank you, Sheri. That was a great review and dive into just some of what Sparkrock 365 on Dynamics 365 can bring to an organization. So with that, I know we're right at time. So Joanne, have we had any questions come in? Are there any questions we could answer to end our time today?
Nope, there are no questions in the queue.
Okay, well, thank you all again for spending some time of your day with myself, Sheri, and Joanne here. We hope that it was insightful for you, and we'd love to talk with you more about how you can improve your organization's technology and how you can use that to better enable your employees and the services you provide across your tribal organization. So thanks again for your time with us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yes, thank you.